Okay, check it out. Welcome back once again to another episode of Focus. Now, you know what, yeah? Given that the UK just put to bed coal, you'd think something much more cleaner was going to replace it, right? But you're wrong. Burning rubbish has now become the UK's dirtiest form of power, with it generating almost as much as coal used to. Burning household rubbish in giant incinerators to make electricity is now the dirtiest way the UK generates power. BBC analysts has found, nearly half of the rubbish produced in the UK homes, including increasing amounts of plastic, is now being incinerated. Scientists warn it is a disaster for the climate, and some are calling for a ban on new incinerators. The BBC examined 5 years of data across the country and found that burning waste produces the same amount of greenhouse gases for each unit of energy as coal power, which was abandoned by the UK last month. The Environmental Services Association, which represents waste firms, contested our findings and said emissions from dealing with the waste are challenging to avoid. Nearly 15 years ago, the government became seriously concerned with the gases being produced from throwing away household rubbish in landfills and their contribution to the climate change. In response, it hiked the taxes UK councils paid for burying waste. Facing massive bills, councils turned to energy from waste plants or incinerators, a type of incinerator that produces electricity from burning rubbish. The number of incinerators surged. In the past 5 years alone, the number in England alone has risen from 38 to 52. About 3.2% of the UK's energy now comes from waste incinerators. These incinerators were described by the waste disposal industry as a green alternative to landfill at the time of their conception. This is certainly the case for food waste, which produces less harmful greenhouse gases when burnt, but it's not the case for plastic waste. Plastic is made of fossil fuels, and burning it rather than burying it in a landfill produces high levels of greenhouse gases. In the past few years, more plastic has been going into incinerators and less food waste, which councils are now sending to anaerobic digesters to be composted. But the government's own calculations continue to assume that we send the same mix of rubbish as we did back in 2017, potentially underestimating the scale of the issue. The BBC's 5-year analysis used data on actual pollution levels recorded by operators at their incinerators and found that energy from waste plants are now producing the same amount of greenhouse gases per unit of electricity as they were burning coal. Incineration and coal produce the most CO2 per unit of energy. The average carbon dioxide equivalent emissions produced per kilowatt or per kilowatt hour in 2023, with coal was at 730 kilowatts per hour compared to incineration, which was at 720. Considering that coal is no longer in the picture, right now incineration has overtaken it and become the number one most polluting form of power generation in the UK. So I'll get to that. For the past 3 decades, the UK has been reducing its use of coal because of how polluting it is, and last month closed its last coal plant. The government hopes this will help it achieve its target of ensuring electricity generation This will help it achieve its target of ensuring electricity generation produces no carbon emissions by 2030. This now leaves waste incineration as the dirtiest way the UK produces power. According to the BBC analysts, energy produced from waste is 5 times more polluting than the average UK unit of energy or electricity. The government's Independent Advisory Group, or the UK Climate Change Committee, warns that incineration will make up an increasing part of emissions from electricity generation. It is an insane situation, said Dr. Ian Williams, Professor of Applied Environmental Science at the University of Southampton. The current practice of burning waste for energy and building more and more incinerators for this purpose is at odds with our desire to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, he said. Increasing its use is disastrous for our climate. Lord Debon, the Conservative Environment Minister who introduced the landfill tax in 1996, told the BBC, "We've got too many incinerators and we shouldn't have any more. They begin to distort our ability to recycle, and yet incinerators are still being built in England." The UK government approved a new 150 million site in Dorset last month, overturning the local council's decision to block it. Dorset Council leader Nick Ireland told the BBC at the time that it kneecaps the country's efforts to achieve their net zero target, the goal of no longer adding to carbon emissions by 2050. In the past few years, Wales and Scotland have introduced bans on new incinerator plants over environmental concerns, and there have been increasing calls from leading academics and environmental groups for the same to happen in England and Northern Ireland. These include the UK Climate Change Committee, which has recommended that no more plants be built without effort to capture all their carbon emissions. There are currently only 4 out of 58 incinerators in the UK with approved plans to capture their emissions, and one pilot project that is operating. This project is at Ferrybridge EFW. It collects 1 ton of carbon dioxide a day, but the site itself produces more than 500,000 tons of CO2 annually. Incinerators are getting dirtier and bigger. Without action, it is expected that the use of incinerators in the UK will continue to grow, and they will probably get more polluting. There are currently dozens of new plants going through the planning process, and existing ones are growing in capacity. The BBC investigation found nearly half of all incinerators in the UK have managed to get a capacity increase approved by the Environment Agency without applying for a new permit, which requires public consultation. The waste they are burning is increasingly made up of plastic. According to local government data, because plastic is produced from fossil fuels, it is the dirtiest type of waste to burn. According to the government's own statistics, burning plastic produces 175 times more carbon dioxide or CO2 than burying it in the landfill. Professor Keith Bell, who sits on the UK Climate Change Committee, said after reviewing the BBC's findings, if the current government is serious about clean power by 2030, then we cannot allow ourselves to be locked into just burning waste. In April, a temporary ban on permits for new incinerators was introduced in England by the previous Conservative government, while it reviewed the role of burning waste, but when the ban lapsed in May, it was not continued. It appears that the current government has yet to decide its position on the issue. In a letter last month, senior civil servants at the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero said they were unable to decide whether to approve a proposed incinerator in North Lincolnshire until the Department of the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, or DEFRA, has decided the government's policy on burning waste for power. Considering the Dorset incinerator was approved by the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, this letter raises questions about the consistency of the government's approach on this issue. In response to a request for comment, a DEFRA spokesperson said, "We are considering the role waste incineration will play as we decarbonize and grow the economy." But councils are still locked into burning waste. The challenge is that even if local authorities wanted to move away from the use of energy from waste plants, they are often unable to due to restrictive long-term contracts. The BBC made freedom of information requests to every UK local authority responsible for disposing of waste, which revealed that they have at least 30 billion worth of contracts with waste operators involving incinerators, some lasting more than 20 years. These arrangements have been criticised by the House of Commons Public Accounts Committee for locking councils into financially burdensome arrangements. Dr. Colin Church, who led an independent review of incineration for the Scottish Government, which resulted in the ban, said, "Lock-in is a real issue. The energy from waste sector swears blind it's not, but it is." In 2019, Derbyshire County Council and Derbyshire City Council terminated their contract with waste company RRS because an incinerator it had built for them did not pass initial tests, with residents complaining about the smell and noise. Although the plant had never been used, the councils were ordered to pay 93.5 million in compensation to RRS's administrator for terminating the contract early. The BBC also found that dozens of councils had clauses in their contracts which demanded a minimum amount of waste to be sent to incinerators for burning, known in the industry as the deliver or pay clause. In 2010, Stoke-on-Trent Council was left facing a £329,000 claim from Hanford Waste Service for not sending enough waste to be incinerated. The council declined to say if it paid the claim, but told us the clause had since been removed from its contracts with the operator. But the Local Government Association, or the LGA, representing local authorities in England and Wales, expressed concerns to the BBC that these contracts have left councils unable to explore the use of more environmental solutions, such as recycling, for fear of a fine for breach of contract. Joe Harris, Vice Chair of the LGA and leader of Cotswold District Council, said, "If we can adapt those contracts which allow us to reduce the amount of waste going to incineration, if we can boost recycling, we want to do that. But we can't have councils facing financial penalties." For the past 10 years, recycling rates have failed to increase, remaining stuck at about 41% in England, despite a previous commitment by the previous Conservative government for 65% of the UK's household waste to be recycled by 2035. Wales is the only nation to have hit the 65% target. But the Environmental Service Association, the waste industry body, said burning rubbish for the energy has been complementary to efforts to recycle. Moreover, the past decade and that stagnant recycling rates are only indicative of a failure to develop recycling policies. A DEFRA spokesperson told the BBC, "We are committed to cutting waste and moving to a circular economy so that we reuse, reduce and recycle more resources and help meet our emissions targets." How we calculated the emissions? In order to calculate the emissions produced per unit of energy from England's incinerators, the BBC needed to obtain the emissions produced and the power output from these sites. Each incinerator in the UK produces annual monitoring reports, which record key statistics associated with the plant, including its total emissions. But in a few cases, the emissions were not recorded in the annual monitoring report, and so the figures recorded in the government's pollution the figures recorded in the government's pollution inventory report were used in replacement. The IPCC, the UN climate science body, recommends that biogenic emissions, which come from burning organic matter like food, are not included in calculations because they are recorded under the emissions for the land and forestry sector. So we had to remove these biogenic emissions from the total by working out what share of the waste being burnt was organic. Some operators recorded this, but in the cases where they didn't, the government guidelines advised applying a factor based on the share of household waste that was recorded as biogenic during a 2017 survey by the environmental NGO WRAP or RAP. This gave the BBC the total fossil emissions, meaning those associated with burning the fossil waste or non-organic waste at the site, including plastic. Then we calculated a carbon intensity figure, the carbon emissions per unit of the energy generated for every site by dividing the total fossil emissions by the energy generated. Methodical support was provided by Francesco Pompey, Professor of Sustainability Science at the Edinburgh Napier University, Massimiliano Maserazzi, Associate Professor of Chemical Engineering at the University College of London, and Dr. Jim Hart, Sustainability Consultant. But like I said, all of this to me is always quite fascinating. Earth is amazing. I mean, not just the people, not just the places, but what we are always doing with it. It's really intriguing that only last month coal was viewed as being one of the most toxic things to burn, or one of the biggest greenhouse gas emitters. And now, only a month later, the UK is practically back in the same position. I mean, it's amazing, but not always for the right reasons. Once again, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Focus. I hope you like what you heard. I hope you like to stick around for the thoughts and facts section. If you like stories like these, check out the show notes. If you like more, if you want to hear more, check out further stories. But once again, thanks for tuning in. And if you're still here, once again, welcome to another episode, or welcome to another section, or another thoughts and facts section. Now, you might say I'm digressing, but I think it just requires or there's a warrant, for me to explain just a little bit of this. Because before we talk about how dirty the replacement to coal was, I've got to give you a brief intro into, how coal changed the world. It's known as the Industrial Revolution. And yes, it's funny that the UK just closed its first coal plant. It was actually the first country in the world to actually open one. Either way. So, facts. What was the Industrial Revolution? The Industrial Revolution in modern history, the process of change from an agrarian or handicraft economy to one that dominated by industry and machine manufacturing. But it wasn't just that. There were three first industrial revolutions that transformed our modern society. With each of these three advancements, with the steam engine, which, as you know, was powered by coal, the age of science and mass production, once again, which was more or less also powered by coal, and the rise of digital technology, which is a whole different ballgame. We'll get there eventually. But a few facts. As I said, the Industrial Revolution began in Britain. It all started with coal, but coal wasn't the only factor. The term Industrial Revolution was popularized by an English economic historian, and the first modern factory was a water-powered cotton spinning mill. You've got to admit, that was amazing. It all started between 1750 and 1900, or you could say the early 19s, before 1991 or 1996 or any of those. The key features of the industrial Britain, the years between and around 1750 and 1950 were a period of rapid change in Britain. There were big changes to where people live, developments in science and technology, and a growing democracy. These all had implications for health. With the increasing amount of coal plants or coal mines opening up all over the world, you did see an increasing amount of, workers or miners with increasing lung problems, all kind of, medical things. I mean, in England alone, it was well documented that coal miners were among the people who would suffer the most when it came to respiratory illnesses. But I wouldn't say England is the one that leads as having the most. Maybe at the peak of the Industrial Revolution, maybe, but maybe not now. But like I said, what came just before we finish it off though, what came after the industrial age, just in case you're curious? It's the information age. I mean, we loved learning, didn't we? We still do, don't we? While it's commonly believed that the industrial age was supplanted by the information age in the late 20th century, a view that has become common since the revolutions of the 1989. Much of the third world economy is still based on manufacturing, although mobile phones are now commonplace, and even in the poorest countries can facilitate major change and help people, how can I say this, have a much greater semblance of life. But like I said, I digressed, and it was major. Let's go back to the point. Can you believe that after all of this big show that the UK is no longer going to be burning coal anymore, it's only to be replaced by incinerators, which only generate, I think, 10 kilowatts per hour less than coal did. Now, bearing in mind that coal was just pure carbon, as they mentioned in the article itself, what's mostly being burned at these incinerators is plastic. And I'm pretty sure quite a few of us know what plastic's like when it burns, or if you smelt it, even the color when it's burning, it's the amount of smoke, the blackness, the thickness of it, it's much more than something burning normally, to anyone who's actually witnessed it or observed it. But as the article said, compared to it being stored away in a landfill, burning these plastics is generating at least 175 times more carbon or CO2 on a daily basis, or I could say on an hourly basis. One of these plants alone generates over 100,000, and it can only capture 100 tons, 120 tons? Don't quote me on that, but you know, I mentioned it from before. And the other striking thing to me about this was the fact that it also mentioned that there's an increasing number of plants being built still. So I would say it's almost like all of this was kind of for sure, and just to hit targets, they came up with not really efficient replacements. Considering that they looked at this 15 years ago and they saw or had the foresight to think that it could contribute majorly to climate change, it still is mind-boggling, actually mind-blowing, that these companies setting up all of these incinerators can actually charge the councils where they are located for not being used. Now, I would think setting up a facility like that would be in the best interest of all those around it. So it would not be set up on a basis where it would have to be continually burning, but it would be set up on a basis where that it would burn when it has what it needs. So under the pretense of each one of these clauses, these companies were effectively telling each council that they had to come up with X amount of rubbish at the end of every week, fortnight, so on or so forth. But that's something that would be out of their control. And even then, if you're encouraging your council member, the people who live in your constituency to recycle, obviously you're going to be looking at less and less waste going out. So it seems like a truly catch-22 situation, and it doesn't entirely seem productive, especially considering the amount of money that's going into it. If a contract is broken, that money could have been put towards something like the council repairing roads. I mean, I'm looking at this mentioning how it had to pay a clause of about 92 million, and it's talking about, I saw in another article somewhere that roads to be fixed, funds for the roads to be fixed is something like 150 billion. I mean, when you think about these things sometimes, it just really doesn't compute. And I say this in the kindest of ways, because if you actually have to work it out yourselves, it really doesn't work out. The figures that they put in on all of these projects is, or can seem, insurmountable to what we can do. I mean, the world is really, really changing. The amount we have to pay for things is increasing, but yet still the amount of things we are throwing away is not going down. So tell me, how is it that people can barely afford to buy things now, but yet still there's still so much rubbish going out? So much so to the point that the UK alone has over or about 52 incinerators. Whether or not all of them are running at capacity is an entirely different story. But considering that coal, or the last coal power plant, just cooled down for the last time, I would make an educated guess to the fact that these incinerators are going to most likely start burning a little more. And when it comes down to the content of what they're burning, that is actually literally purely down to the, how do they call them? Energy waste burners. Yeah, the plant managers themselves. It's actually up to them to separate whatever they receive. You can't tell me you have a clause telling an entire county that they have to deliver you X amount of rubbish, and also tell them that they have to sort it for you. I think if you see you're so intent on getting the rubbish, you must be so intent on sorting it. So that being said, those companies that did not submit accurate, annually monitoring report, I think they'd be the ones to maybe have a closer look at. But you know what? As I always say, Earth is an amazing place. Not just the people, not just the places, but what we have done with it, what we can do with it, and what we have yet still to do with it. And you know, as I always say, our history is pretty vast, and we're making it pretty fast. And in the grand scheme of it all, what is a few minutes of your time? Not that I don't appreciate it, but 28 minutes is a lot, I know. So, I'll let you go. I'll say it once again as I always do. Carpe diem. Seize the day. Let no one destroy your zen. Let no one destroy your peace. If you're not having a great day, it's not too late to make it so. Take care.